Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl Carmen Renee, and welcome to a Different Perspective podcast. Now, just today, I asked online in the stories of Instagram and Facebook, I simply asked or just said some seasons of life make it feel like you've gone all the way back to the beginning, whether you're looking for a new job, a new business, a relationship ending, and it may make you feel like from the outside, like you're starting over. And I said, you're not. And you're really not because if you ever had or looked or had the thought that I cannot believe I'm back here again, right? And like I said, you're rebuilding your finances, you're starting another health journey, whatever that looks like for you, or picking up something you walked away from years ago. And because you've been here before, it can feel like you're right back at the beginning. Like at the time, like all the time you spent, everything you tried and everything you went through somehow no longer count. But it does count. Like you're not starting over. You are starting again from information that you didn't have the first time. That's wisdom. You know more, you notice things sooner, you ask different questions, you understand yourself better, you have proof of what you can survive, right? And it may look like the beginning, but you are not the same person who stood there before, right? So today we're talking about why starting again can feel like starting over and why those are not the same thing. So last week I talked about bringing my podcast back after being away from it from 3 years. And when I first decided to record again, I caught myself thinking, I'm starting over. I had to find my rhythm again. I had to get comfortable recording again. And I had to figure out what I wanted the show to become. But then I stopped myself because I wasn't actually starting from the same place I started back in 22 as I originally thought. I had more experience. I understood my voice better, even though I'm still working on that. And over here, I always talk about getting things done, even if it's not perfect. Sometimes we think that things have to be perfect, and it doesn't. Um, and so I knew what I wanted the conversation to feel like. I knew what I did not want. So, yes, I was returning to the microphone, but I was not returning empty handed. And that's where I'm going to leave my story. Because this episode isn't really about me per se or my podcast. It's about what happens when you have to begin again. The phrase starting over carries a lot of weight. I know. It doesn't just describe where you are, it often becomes a judgment about how you got there. When you say, I'm starting over, sometimes what you really mean is, and you have this in your mind, I should be further along, or I wasted too much time, or I cannot believe this didn't work. This is why starting again can feel so painful. You are not only dealing with the new beginning, you are also carrying the disappointment of how the last chapter ended. And then you compare your current reality to the new life you thought you would have by now. And that comparison can make a new beginning feel like a punishment. But beginning again is not always proof that you failed or is saying that you failed. Sometimes it's proof that you are still willing to choose something different. And so, yes, a relationship can end, a job can end, a business can close, a routine can stop working, a dream can change, etc. All the things. But when something ends, we often act like everything connected to it disappeared. And it didn't. You may no longer have the relationship, but you now have more, or now know more about how you want to be treated, right? You may no longer have that job, but you have skills, you have experience, and you have a clear understanding of what kind of environment works for you. Let's talk about business. The business may not have become what you imagined. I can attest to that, but you learn something about money, customers, marketing, boundaries, and what it takes to keep showing up. You may have regained weight if you were that person who's always on a fitness journey, but you still know which habits helped you feel better and which plans were impossible to maintain. The outcome may be gone in all of those examples, but the lesson is still yours. And I think we need to stop measuring the value of an experience only by whether we keep the final result. Because sometimes the most important thing you gained is not something other people can see. It's discernment, it's self awareness, it's stronger boundaries, it's understanding what you need, it's learning what you will never accept again, and it's knowing when something is no longer right for you. All of those things count. They may not look impressive on paper, but they can change the way you move through your next chapter. And so again, you are not returning as the person who knew nothing. You are returning as someone who has already lived through a version of this. And that's information, that's data. So here is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Experience does not always make you feel more confident. Sometimes experience make you more afraid because the first time you try something, you may not know all the ways it can go wrong, and that's where fear sets in. And then the second time you do it, you know what it feels like, right? You know that you put your time in, you put your heart in, you put your money in it possibly, or even energy into something, and sometimes you don't get the result you expected. So the second beginning can feel heavier than the first one because you are more aware now. And awareness may sound like fear when you don't know what to do with it. You may hear yourself saying, I already tried this. What if I waste more time, etc., etc.? All the things, and these are real concerns. But they are not things that should keep you from trying to do it a second time, to see how it works out. Fear can give you information without being allowed to make the final decision. You can acknowledge what happened before and still decide to move differently now. The goal is not to pretend the past never happened. The goal is to stop letting the past convince you that nothing can ever change, because knowing what can go wrong also gives you the ability to prepare differently. You can ask more questions, you can slow down, you can notice the warning signs, you can create boundaries early on, you can ask for help before anything becomes overwhelming. Right. So let's make this distinction clear. Starting from scratch means you have no point of reference, no knowledge, no experience, no understanding of what you are walking into. Starting from experience means you already have information about what worked, what didn't, what mattered, and what needs to change. You may not have the result yet, but you do not have beginner thinking anymore. Think about the woman who is dating again after a painful relationship, and I know we talk about relationships a lot, but just stay with me. And so she may feel nervous. So she may wonder whether she can trust herself. But she knows things now. She knows that attention is not the same as intention. I'll say it again. She knows that attention is not the same as intention. She knows that chemistry is not the same as compatibility. She knows what happens when she ignores her own discomfort. She knows what peace feels like because she has experienced the absence of it. So this is not starting from scratch. Think about the woman rebuilding her finances. Let's switch it up a little bit. She may be embarrassed about debt. She may feel behind, but now she understands her spending patterns, right? She knows what happens when she avoids the numbers. She understands how quickly small expenses can become large balances. Again, that's not starting from scratch. That's starting from experience. She knows that extreme plans don't work for her, etc. So think about the woman going back to school in her 40s. She may feel older than everyone else in the room, but she knows why she is there. She understands responsibility different. She has survived real life. She knows how to ask for help. She may be a new student, but she is not new to navigating hard things. Again, lastly, I'm not going to beat this over the head, but it's not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And there's a difference between using the past as a lesson and using it as like something you never experienced before. A lesson says I need to choose differently this time. And vice versa. On the flip side, you will say I always make bad decisions. Right? A lesson says that plan did not fit my life. On the flip side, it'll say I'm not disciplined. And this is why the language you use matters. Pay attention to when you hear yourself saying, I always do this. I never finish anything. Nothing ever works for me. I'm right back where I started. Those statements do not simply describe your experience, they create an identity around it. And once you decide that failure is part of who you are, every difficult moment starts looking like proof. You attach it to yourself. You miss one day and say, see, I know I couldn't stay consistent. One thing goes wrong and you say, this is exactly what happened last time. Don't say those things. You are allowed to say, I recognize this feeling and I'm going to respond differently. I choose to respond differently. This is how experience becomes useful. So here's what I want you to do. Before you call this starting over thing, answer 3 questions. Write them down. Don't just think about them for 30 seconds and move on. Give yourself time to answer them honestly. This is question one. What do I know that I did not know the first time? Be specific. Question two. What will I do differently this time? This is where the lesson becomes action. And question three, what do I no longer have to prove? This one matters because starting again can turn into like you performing and you want to prove you were not the failure. But the goal is to not to recreate the exact same negative thoughts or feelings, but look at things from a different perspective, right? So this is what I want you to carry with you. It may feel like you are back at the beginning, but you are not who you were at the beginning. You are bringing information, you are bringing lessons, you are bringing stronger questions, you are bringing proof that you can survive disappointment. And the goal is not to return to the person you were before everything happened, so to speak. The goal is to let everything you learn help you become more intentional about what happens next. You are not starting from nothing, you are starting from experience. Until next time, keep asking better questions.